Thank you so much for joining us and being a part of our Metro Life Church online campus. Why don't you take a moment to like and subscribe to this page, as well as turning on the notifications so you can be a part of everything Metro Life through YouTube and stay up to date with everything that we have going on for our online campus. If you would like to continue in your financial support of this ministry or your worship to God through giving, you could do so at metrolifechurch.com/give to again continue in your faithfulness in your tithes and offerings. Our pastors have a great message for you today, and we know you're going to be blessed.
I'm glad today to be joined with my good friend on our platform. You know him, Alan Paul. I call him AP. And I'm glad that you and I can come together this time to be able to talk about some subjects that are happening in the world around us today. So thanks for being here. You look good.
Thank you, Pastor. It's an honor, and just love to be able to dive into this stuff, and appreciate you once again always leading with the church, leading with the word, leading with the Spirit, never letting what's going on around us get in us, and so that our people can, just walk in more peace and more authority.
Well, we started what is called the One Project, where we have assembled some of our families in the church, some leaders, and we're coming together to address social issues that are going on in the world. And those social issues find their way in the church. And it's because what sometimes could be social has a spiritual answer to it. So we want to bring to light some issues that are going on, and you'll be hearing more about this church as we go forward. But AP and I are here today because we want to talk about the whole issue of bias, and we're calling this conversation today the beast of bias. And we're going to look at how that beast, how bias shades our thinking, shades the way we look at other individuals, and it causes us to be divided rather than united as one. And again, sometimes that's happening in the church. We're seeing that more than ever. So this discussion we're going to have is going to help us bring reconciliation to the races that are affecting our lives, and allow us to respond to what many of you are hearing on social media and even in the news. Now, when we think about reconciliation, I have a thought here. It says, the idea of reconciliation acknowledges the fact that there is a separation between two or more parties. And Alan, I don't know if it's necessarily the color of one's skin that's causing this separation. I think it's a mindset. I think it's the way we are viewing another person, regardless of the color of their skin or even their ethnicity and their country of origin. Because we find that this separation of people goes beyond just black and white right now. There's some other issue, other colors of the hues of the skin that are also being experienced with this separation. So you and I were mentioning something, and I want to hear your take on it. We talked about racism being more of a sin problem or a skin problem. Well, speak to that for a little bit.
Well, Pastor, when we talk about it, and as you said, there's so many issues and things that are piled on top of what was already a situation that was happening in America, not just in America, as you've preached before. This is something that's been all the way back to the beginning of humanity. So when God created Cain and Abel, and his brother, one brother, Cain, we don't know what their color was. We don't go back and we try to figure out all the DNA, right? We don't know what the ethnicity was of the first human beings, but we do know that they were brothers, and we do know that one rose up and killed the other because of something in his heart, a mindset, right? And that has just continued throughout all of time, and so America's not the first place that racism and classism and all these isms has arisen. However, it is in our day, since we're talking about now, right, America and, Black Lives Matter and all these other catchphrases and things that we're hearing, it is where we're supposed to work it out. I think Jesus decided to come into a place when he came where there were Romans, Jews, Gentiles, Samaritans. He knew what it was like to be around all of these different cultures and races and ethnicities. He had to deal with it, and now we have to deal with it as a church. So when you say skin or sin, I know some of us, African Americans, we do immediately see, okay, this is an issue of black and white, because that's always been, since America has been founded, one of the big issues. African Americans were not treated as real people. Why? Because of the color of your skin. There were designations, whites only, blacks only. And so this whole racial issue was based on skin. But the sin issue is what predicated the skin issue. And so I don't think that we're kind of glossing over skin versus sin. I think it's a little bit of both. You have to know that if you have an issue with someone's color, it's because your heart is already been, I hate to use this word, but your heart is already dark. Your heart has already been, it's already dirty. There's already something inside there contaminating. And so that's what created, like you said, the image and the mindset to see somebody else and immediately make a judgment of who they are. And so you got to deal with both. You got to deal with the skin issue because you have a sin issue, because we have an issue in the church and in the world of not seeing the people the way God sees them. You can't stop there. You can't stop at just, I need to see everybody as this colorblind or this, I'm not anti-racist is what they're calling now. It's not even, can it be not racist now, I'm anti-racist. But if you're just going to simply stop there, then you're missing the point. You've got to go deeper into why did I even let that into my heart? Why is that in our culture, and who put it there? And that is a sin issue just as much as it is a skin issue. So that's what.
Yeah. And I appreciate the fact that you bring up at the very beginning, you said, well, we don't know the color of the first man or woman. We don't know the color of a Cain and an Abel. We don't know the color. The only reason we would want to know the color, quite frankly, is to show superiority.
Yeah.
Some would look at that and think, well, I need to know so that then makes my race, my people, my skin color equal. And maybe what we should be seeing is, for the purpose of our skin color, it's okay to have a healthy pride about where we've come from.
Absolutely.
Oh man, because people say, well, I don't look at skin color. I see you nice and brown, brother. And I appreciate that. I can't help it. It's not as though I'm sitting there just looking at the dark beard and the pearly whites. I see the nice brown skin to go with it. And you're looking at me and you see a very fair man that needs to stay out of the sun.
But I see everything. I see the Italian. I see
yeah.
all of that. And that's, I'd love to just jump in and say that's one of the things where I want to counsel people not to think that you can't be proud of your heritage and you can't be proud of your culture. I mean, that's something that God gave us. And I wrote, I think on Instagram a little earlier, that the only thing that I should be aware of is when I have an unhealthy sense of pride. And that's exactly what you just started to talk about, the superiority. But as long as what I am is giving glory to God, I'm supposed to express it. That's God making everything unique in His creation and everything, and that includes you and me. And yeah, I love that.
And that equality is where we need to be putting our attention. And this goes for both races, all races.
Yeah.
It's not about superiority, who's going to be better. It's about equality, how we can come together as one.
Yes.
Now, the reason this is going to be such a hard-fought battle, even as we talk about these different things, and I'm so thankful that you and I share the same spirit, but the reason this is going to be such a hard-fought battle is because we're going to be dealing with some old spirits. Talk about those spirits that are ingrained. I mean, they're strongholds. Yeah. And so you've got pride, you've got prejudices. And in order to deal with the whole racism conversation, we've got to go back and deal with pride and racism. Pride and prejudice. Yeah. That's leading to racism. And that's where you talk about the sin problem. We've got to address that somewhere. We're also going to be going back and we're going to be dealing with some past hurts and abuses If we want to deal with the sin problem, then we got to go back and have, or at least understand and be educated of what slavery would have looked like to our African American brothers and what hurt and abuse that brought up. Because some of us don't understand it. And also on the part of those who were enslaved, there has to be a recognition that I've been hurt, but I can't live hurt. I can't continue to carry this pain forever of what happened yesterday. Because even Paul says, don't go back to that yoke of enslavement.
A bondage.
So we're dealing with some past issues there. And then we're going to be dealing with some present pain. How do we account for a high drug usage amongst the black community? How do we deal with the understanding or the communities where there's poverty that are keeping our black brothers and others impoverished? That continues to perpetuate the pain. So you try to get out of the pain of yesterday, but some of the pain remains today, and the enemy's like, perfect, that's exactly where I want you. So he positions himself to fight this battle continuously because of old past, the hurts of yesterday. You're dealing with distrust. Too many broken promises. Promises have not been kept. And this goes from the highest office all the way down. Promises were made by people in the White House that didn't fulfill their promises, and politicians that were buying into. And even others, they've just made promises, but they weren't kept. And so it causes a distrust to be there. That's why this is such a hard-fought battle. Dealing with, as you mentioned, the spirit of Cain. That's a spirit of murder, brother-on-brother crime. And we hear about that happening in our society today with black-on-black crime, white-on-white crime. We've got brothers that are killing each other, taking each other out. The unborn, the death of a child in the womb, that spirit of Cain is in operation. It's going to be a hard-fought battle. How about dealing with hate? Hate's real. It's legitimate. And we're trying to deal with that hate. And in the past, I used to wonder, how did the Nazis lead people like the Jews into those ovens? It was pure hate that caused them to do so. And that spirit is sitting on the corner and still causing a disruption amongst brothers, and some even in the church that we've got to be so careful of, because that spirit is out there. So we've got such a hard-fought battle before us. How about dealing with an anti-God, anti-Bible, anti-church culture and society? We've got a hard-fought battle before us.
It's a lot.
AP, I remember in the 90s, when I got out of college in 84 and I started ministering in about the late 80s as a young adult to the adult congregation. When I was younger, came out of college, I was a youth leader. But when I started preaching and I started ministering to adults, I would be listening to leadership podcasts. And one of them had to do with a whole philosophy called the frog in the kettle. And it was preparing us for the new millennium that was going to be coming up, and the year 2000. And they were talking about how to preach more effectively. And at that point, we were more or less instructed, and this takes a knot against some ministers. We were instructed to not preach on divorce or against it, because then those who were divorced in the church would be hurt. You didn't want them to feel convicted. We were told not to preach on abortion. Don't do it, because then you may have people in your church that have aborted babies and you didn't want them to feel condemned. We were told, as time went on, we get into the new millennium, not to preach against homosexuality, because you didn't want to offend anyone that would be in the church struggling with it or living in it, or even family members that may have a family member that is a homosexual. We were told, as time went on, even now, not to preach on biblical authority. Because if you preach on biblical authority, then you are siding with either the president or you're siding with law enforcement. And they tell you, don't touch that. And of course, today, they don't even want you preaching against racism. What they want you to do is agree with their cause, so don't preach against much. So it's like the church leadership has had our hands tied. So I say all that just to kind of throw out to us what our challenge is going to be as we keep going forward. And we're not going to get a one-and-done experience where we talk about this and everybody in the church feels better.
Nope.
You feel better, I feel better. It's not going to happen like that. We've got a hard-fought battle that is before us, and we need to continue to fight. So I think you and I know that we share a similar spirit, and we want right.
Absolutely.
You're not out trying to outperform a brother of light skin.
No, I don't have to. There's no, yeah, it's not. It's almost, and you say the like spirit, I mean, there is something that when you say that, like I'm not trying to outperform, there is definitely a spirit of, I would say, I don't know if it's competition, but it's obviously division. But it comes in and it does kind of make you say, well, okay, for me to feel equal, I have to do something. And that's not Christian. Jesus came so that all of us would not have to do it by works, right? But by faith. At the foot of the cross, it's level. So this idea that somehow either any race or any body should have to prove themselves, right? Either to each other. It's anti-Bible. It's anti-Christ. It's not a spirit of Christ in that. And so I feel so strongly when you say that this church that you and Pastor Mary have led and founded is based on those principles. We feel it when we walk in, and it's why I believe that this church is going to continue to lead this fight. It's going to continue because the principles are already set when you walk in the door, that we are all equal, that we are looking for solutions. We are not problem-oriented, we're solution-oriented. And so that's what I gravitate to, just telling you, the church and you right here, that's why I'm here, because I feel that, I sense that the Spirit is I'm picking that up from the second I walk in every time, even though now I'm on staff and playing worship team, I would be here anyway, because I need more of what you just talked about.
Yeah, and let's go back to business for a minute. If we're trying to negotiate a deal, the goal of successful negotiation is a win-win scenario. It's abusive if I'm trying to win at your expense. Then I'm a shyster. I'm out for my own well-being. I'm just out for this deal. And I may get this one deal because you lose, I win, I walk away with more money, and so on. But you'll never do business with me.
Yeah, the relationship is
done.
Yeah.
Now, if it's the other way, where I'm doing negotiation and you're hard on your end and you're saying, hey, I want to win this thing. And you win and then I lose. I'm over here thinking, okay, this joker, forget it. I'm not going to do any further business with him. Now you walk away, you got one big deal. It worked for you. But you can't build a successful business with you winning and me losing. And I can't ever build a successful business knowing that I've got to win all the time. Yeah. Successful negotiation says, let's both win in this deal. It has to be a win-win proposition. That's where we have to be as we have this conversation. Both or all parties have to walk away from the table feeling like I'm winning. And if we win-win, we do win together.
Absolutely.
That's what one represents, equality and unity. We win.
Yeah. The we. Yeah.
We.
Exactly.
Win.
Exactly.
In the long run, when we both win, when it's a win-win proposition. So there's some people out there that are so caught up in making sure that the other party pays. The other person has to pay. The other one has to. admit of their mistakes and their failures. And you're looking at that, and people are getting kind of built up and saying, wait a minute, I have a reason to feel this way. And I don't have to lose at your expense of having to win.
Right, there's a pushback, yeah.
We're not going to win that way.
No, yeah.
There is a way that we can both win. Don't you agree?
I absolutely agree. And this is something that literally popped into my head, I think, on my way here. And what you're referring to, I believe, is this, I'm going to call it what I believe it is. It's the abolition of grace. The idea that somehow, because there was a wrong, that it must be righted and that there's no possibility of return from that wrong. And again, that's the spirit that I'm sensing, and I want to be very sensitive to everyone who's ever been hurt, because you started this very message and this talk with acknowledging the hurts. So to say that there is a hurt and acknowledge it does not mean suddenly that you're saying there's no reason for you to feel hurt anymore. There's no need for reciprocity. There's no need for, I didn't hear that at all, although some people would hear that, the people that you're discussing, right? The people talking about that feel like, okay, there must be payment. There has to be eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. That covenant didn't work out too well. That covenant didn't work out too well. So what I'm feeling right now when you say, you know, we have a hard fight to fight when it comes to how do you bring everybody to the table. I think it first has to come from acknowledging what's in my heart. How have I been hurt? And if I want to heal and move forward with someone that might have hurt me, or a culture, or a president, or a nation, or a government, you name it, right? We can all point to somebody and say, you're the reason. You did it. But as my grandma used to say, there's 3 fingers still pointing back at you. And so now I got to make a decision. What am I going to do as a result of this? Am I going to hold my life hostage based on this hurt, or am I going to find the grace and the sensitivity and the forgiveness that says that I will do unto others as I would have them do unto me, not as they did unto me? There's a difference. And so I feel like what we have to do as people in the body of Christ is say, we're making a decision, right? Like, we were making a decision. Yes, it happened. Yes, I will not turn my back on the hurts. I will not turn my back, but I will also not let it go forward into my future. It ends now. It will change now, and I'm going to be part of the solution. And so when I think that's what we have to start from. I don't know if I answered the question or not.
No, this is good, because you mentioned a number of principles there that are so very important for this dialogue to go forward. Yeah. For healing to come forth. If you don't follow biblical principles, AP, then you'll never get the hand of God on a situation. You'll never find healing. You'll never find restoration. You'll never find reconciliation. There has to be biblical principles. Right. That's why we want to address this issue of bias, because when it comes down to it, there's a biblical way in which we're able to address it. But one of the other things I think is important, as we are all introing some comments here, is this issue of having to go back and say about our past that the past was so wicked that now you must cancel it. So it's the cancel culture. It's forgetting all the good that a person has done and judging them based on past experiences. Now, if those experiences were in the present, take them out. Remove them from their position, do what you need to do. But if they were things that happened if you were to go and look at my past, listen, thank God I met Mary. That's all I could say. Okay? Thank the Lord I met Mary, and I got married at 27 years of age. Thank the Lord for it. Now, I don't want anybody peeking into my life before I was married.
Or even after, Lord. You're telling the truth. And I love the fact that we have to be transparent. That's the thing. The transparency is so important, because I think, Pastor, what you're going into is idea of cancer culture, and I think I can equate it to bias because there's something I wrote down was the deal is when you're dealing with what you can see. We can see the history, right? We can see what we may not know, but we can see, your past. We can see this is your dad, this is your mom. We can see those experiences. We can make judgments on that. We can make judgments on the decisions that someone might have made, that I've made. You can see, obviously, my skin. You can see my culture. But what I can't see is your soul. I can't see the inside. The Bible says that the God looks on the heart. He sees the heart. And I think one of the biggest issues we have when it comes to bias, when it comes to cancer culture, is that we think we can judge the heart. We've gone back and we've said, because I saw this determines your entire being, everything about this culture or this leader or this historical figure. And if we did that, we would not have Paul, Moses, David, Abraham. Look who we would have to cancel if we took that one moment of their lives and said, because you made this mistake, therefore we can't take anything, we have to take only the bad and we can't take the good. And again, there's an important, I love that you said, let's be honest, there is times when people need to be reprimanded. There's justice, there's things that things to be called out.
Yes.
The church calls it out when it needs to be called out. But the idea that we don't know how to show grace and forgiveness. The cross itself is a Roman execution method. We look every day and we use as our symbol something that for the Romans meant execution, torture, murder. That's our symbol. Don't tell me God cannot redeem a symbol and also redeem the people.
Oh, so good. So good. Yeah, and sadly, everybody who is making those accusations and pointing the fingers, if we were to go back and look in their past, they have no place. So here's the spiritual principle. First, you can't judge.
Yeah.
If you want to look at the Word of God, you can't judge another person. The Bible says, judge not, lest that same judgment come upon you.
Yeah.
So you're not in a position to judge. And the reason that's the case is because you take God out of the equation. We're flawed human beings. We make mistakes.
Absolutely.
We fall, okay? Peter fell. He denied knowing Christ. We wouldn't have Paul or pretty much our entire New Testament if we went back and looked at the past of Paul, because he slaughtered Christians. So God had a plan for a Paul, even though there was a bad past. He had a plan for a Peter, even though he dropped the ball and denied knowing Christ. Now, this is why we don't judge. If we judge, we take the position to cancel somebody. Then we've just eliminated a vessel that God may want to use in the future. And there's too much good that we have been able to come out of as a nation. We've had some great history. We've had some bad, dark history, no doubt.
Absolutely.
But AP, look where we're at today. Yeah. We have a good country to live in. That's why so many are trying to get into our country, to live here. It's a good place to live. Not a perfect place because it's not heaven. No place is.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's a good place. Now, what we have to do is help one another by eliminating this whole judging based on a perception of understanding that I think I have of you. And that's bias.
Yeah.
And AP and I are going to continue this discussion and get into the beast of bias to bless you.
We know you were blessed by that message in the ministry of Metro Life Church. So why don't you just take a moment to like and subscribe to this page and even turn on the notifications so you can stay up to date with everything about our Metro Life Church online campus. And again, if you would like to continue your financial support of this ministry or your worship to God through giving, you can do so at metrolifechurch.com/give. And why don't you also take a moment to share this video and this message with as many people on your social media platforms as possible to continue to spread this message and the message of Jesus Christ to the world. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.